Hi, my name's Oliver. I would like to show you today my custom race control bar. I've been kiting for many years and I've also been customizing my gear for many years. I really enjoy customizing my gear. I enjoy getting the gear exactly the way I like it to be. I've made a few control bars over the years. This is my latest and greatest version and I'm really happy with it, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. Maybe it can inspire you to customize your gear as well and get it exactly the way you want it. The ideas for the bar are taken from various different bars that I've used over the years and also input from some of my friends that build their own bars as well. This bar is based on Flysurfer components. I purchased all the components separately and then I put them together myself. I purchased all the lines and the lengths of Dyneema separately on reels from sailing shops and various other sources, using the Brummel splice to make all the connections. I'm really happy with the result, specifically with the trim system, the length of the throw. That's really allowed me to ride harder and faster, safer. I say that this is a race bar, but it's definitely not light. It's quite packed in with features. There's a lot of things you could take out of this and it would make it lighter, but the functionality would disappear. I'm not a racer, although I do enjoy racing with my friends. So for me, it was more important that there was good functionality with this bar rather than weight. Okay, so let's take a look. Starting with the quick release system. This is a old style Flysurfer quick release, but I've modified it somewhat. So what I've done is I've made a custom chicken loop. This is really short chicken loop. Flysurfer used to make chicken loops like this, but they stopped doing that a few years ago, unfortunately. So this is made with 5mm Dyneema, splice at both ends. The tricky thing with having it this short is that the tail of this loop has to go right the way up to the other loop, and the tail of that loop has to pass all the way up to here. So it's a bit tricky to splice that one. And then it's wrapped in a plastic tube. I've also got a really short leash here that is hooked into the chicken loop. This is effectively a suicide leash. The reason I have that is that what I find when I'm hydrofoiling is that, maybe it's just me, but in my crashes I often will accidentally knock on the quick release system and it will release. That can be quite problematic when you're in deep water, because once it goes out on the fifth line, with a foil kite it's very difficult to get the kite back on the quick release system without getting tangled and get the kite back up in the air successfully. So I find it much better to have a suicide system, so that if I accidentally hit the main release, the bar just jumps away a short distance and I still have full control. So one of the things I don't like about the Flysurfer race bar setup, and one of the reasons I made my own system, is because Flysurfer has one power line going through the bar on their race setup, which I think is a real shame, because with this system here, with two lines going through the bar, once you've done loop the kite, you can just pull the bar towards you and it untwists. So you don't have this continuous issue where you have to be rotating the end of the quick release to untangle your front lines. So for me, I find that very distracting. It's an extra thing you have to think about when you're kiting. So one of my priorities when I built this system was to get two lines through the bar. A small modification that I've made is the bungee here. I think the standard Flysurfer system has a bungee that comes out of the float, but I found that didn't lock on very well. So what I did is I drilled some small holes in the end of the bar and threaded through this bungee, and then when you put it on like that, it's quite secure, so you don't get the bar unwinding by mistake. One other minor tweak that I've done is, I believe it's Flysurfer's intention that the green side of the bar is the left side of the bar. But I'm so used to over the years having red on my left and seeing that red in the corner of your eye when you're spinning the bar around. So what I decided to do was leave the green on the right and just use some electrical tape to make the left end of the bar red. So I have a fairly simple system for adjusting the length of the steering lines. This is sheathed Dyneema, 5mm. It basically goes through the end of the bar with a knot, another knot which I can move up and down, and then a lark's head from the end of the steering line onto it. On the steering lines, I don't have any floats. It's just a personal preference, but I don't really feel like the floats do much. So then I got two stoppers. These are really useful for landing the kite, but also with hydrofoiling, when you're jibing, you tend to downloop the kite. Often pulling on the bar isn't enough, so it's good to have some options to grab on these stoppers. Then we have the O-sheet system. The idea is that it gives you a way of pulling large quantities of steering line from the system. I'll make another video that explains how this works, but basically the idea is that you grab this line and then you release your leash and your chicken loop from the rest of the system, and you throw the bar away holding only onto this line, which allows you to pull through the whole of one of the steering lines. I find it really useful for landing the kite, especially on snow. You get the kite down on its back, and then what do you do at that point? So one option is to just grab a load of steering line and pull the kite round until it's laying on its side. But that's very difficult to do with Dyneema. It ends up slipping through your hands, cut your gloves or your hands. So I find this system incredibly useful. So it's just a couple of rings, some splices, and a bit of Velcro to hold the system together. Another thing that I really don't like about the standard Flysurfer bars is the length of the throw. It tends to be really short, maybe here somewhere, which I think is a real waste, because the longer the throw is, the more depower you can call on instantaneously, which means the more powered up you can be comfortably, because you know you can get out of the gusts very easily. I think it also makes kiting safer, because when you let go of the bar, you suddenly get so much more depower. Also important, I think, is there's another stopper here that prevents the bar going all the way up. I find that very useful, particularly in the snow, because the throw is so big. If you want to stop for a second, if you want to let go of the bar while you do something else, take both hands off. Sometimes you want to stop the bar fully depowering. Maybe that will cause the kite to run overhead. So it just gives you a few more options there if you've got that stopper. The tail of the trim system I like to have up to the bar, so that I can hold on to the bar like this and have my hand on it even when I'm fully powered. Another thing to note is that I trim the lines so that the lines are of equal length when the trim is about there. The reason for that is especially when hydrofoiling, when you're running downwind, you want to be able to stall the kite. Effectively what that means is when I've got the trim all the way out like that, the lines are equal about there, which means when I'm running downwind on a foil, I can pull that little bit extra, and that will actually stall the kite back into the window, which is really, really useful. As well as having a really long throw on the system, what I also have is a very long trim as well. This has two pulleys on it, which gives it a 4:1 ratio on the pull, which gives you a lot of control in finding the depower that you want, but it also means you can pull depower when you've got a lot of load on the kite. The length of this trim is quite substantial, and actually in the past year I've been increasing this. I've re-rigged everything a couple of times, added longer pieces of Dyneema in here to make this system longer, and what I've found is it's incredible how much you can depower the Flysurfer kites, specifically the Sonic 2. I don't know about the other kites, but on the Sonic 2 you can shorten the front lines tremendously and the kite still responds reasonably well. So that's great, because you can go out in stronger winds, more powered, you can ride faster, you can ride longer when the wind is increasing safely. I really don't understand why Flysurfer doesn't deliver their bars with more trim and more throw. I think this is actually the most satisfying part of this custom setup, is the amount of depower that I can get out of the system now. So the cleat itself is exactly the same as Flysurfer use. You can buy these separately from various different places. It's rigged up slightly differently, so because I've got two power lines coming up, one of them stops in a loop here and the other one carries on up into the trim system. The trim system itself is just these low friction rings. You could also achieve the same thing by using pulleys, but I chose to go with the rings because they're nice and simple. This last ring here is where the trim system splits into the two front lines. So one of the other things I noticed on my old Flysurfer setups was I would get a lot of wear on the lines at the point where the lines cross when you twist the bar. The reason for that is when you're tacking, you're riding under the kite and you're twisting the lines, but you're also steering at the same time, which means you're running the lines past each other whilst they're twisted. So one of the things I've done with this setup is I've added a lot of leader line. So these are 3mm lines, and they go all the way from the bar through the trim system and then many meters up past the point where the lines cross and then connect to the thinner lines. And what that means is that the wear that's seen from twisting the bar and tacking is on the thicker lines, which means the whole system will last many, many years longer. So the thinner lines themselves see almost no wear at all. This is where the fifth line meets the front line. It's very similar to the standard Flysurfer system, around 1 kite width, kite span up the front line. These are the two front lines here, and this is where the fifth line splices into the front line. What I've done here is very similar to what Flysurfer do themselves. I've spliced in a short section this long into the front line, and then I can loop onto it the fifth line.
I'll give you some measurements so that you can copy what I've done if you wish to. So measuring from the bar, I go up the center lines. You can see the throw is just under 60 centimeters. And then the end of the pulley system is about 1.4 meters. Okay, on the steering line, again starting at the bar, first stopper there about 25 centimeters. Second stopper, 40 centimeters. O-sheet system, about 55. And then the end of the leader line is way up here, just under 4 meters. And that's the same on the steering lines and on the power lines. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I've inspired you. Maybe you want to have a go at customizing your gear yourself. I'll put some links in the comments below to places where I've purchased some of the components, and also to some videos of the Brummel splice. I may do some more videos in the future where I go into details of the techniques I used to create some of the parts of the bar. Thanks for watching. Take care.